We really need to change the mindset of the federal government that for the last 7.5 years has viewed cities as the problem and as sort of issues that need to be addressed and held at bay. Cities represent the great hope for this country, and we have to have a president who recognizes that there's a necessity to have a partnership between the federal government and local government to meet the challenges, but also to maximize the opportunities that cities present. At the beginning of my second term, I created a task force on poverty, work, and opportunity to really bring together various people who have worked in this area in Rhode Island, real experts working with the Brookings Institute, to really help us develop a set of strategies that we could implement at the local level. Not only advocate for things at the federal level, not only advocate for change at the state level, but things we could do as a city government to help move people out of poverty. They worked for about a year. They put together a set of comprehensive recommendations. We broke it off now into implementation groups that are now implementing those initiatives. They range from things like creating banking relationships so that people are not using payday loan programs and not using check cashing facilities, and so that people have relationships with banks, all the way to job training and a series of educational initiatives, adult literacy programs, but really things that we can be investing at the city level, working with the private sector, with other government agencies, to begin to move people out of poverty. So I think every city can do that same work. Mayor Bloomberg did in New York City, Mayor Villaraigosa did in Los Angeles. Really sort of, it's another example where mayors are having to take a leadership role because the federal government has failed us. I introduced an ordinance to the City Council to create a vacant and abandoned property penalty, a very stiff penalty that creates an economic disincentive for lending institutions and banks to hold on to property. My concern was that they'll hold foreclosed property, sort of see when the market improves, and there are some bank in Germany, and not understand the impact it's having on a neighborhood in my city. So we created an economic disincentive that makes it very, very unlikely that they're going to hold on to these properties for long periods of time. We also put in legislation in the General Assembly to be sure that people who are tenants in foreclosed property are given notice and an opportunity to be heard if they're evicted. Because what happens is someone owns the property, they have a tenant, pays their rent every month on time, the house is foreclosed, and all of a sudden they're out. So we did that as well. We've also mapped all the foreclosed property in the city with GIS mapping so that the police departments and fire departments are paying extra attention to those properties to be sure that they're protected. And we've also, I have a resolution before the City Council to authorize me to borrow $10 million against our community development block grant funds so that we can really make an investment in both buying some of this property, working with our CDCs, and working with residents of the city to return them back into these homes. It's very disappointing that again, we don't have a federal policy that makes real investments in transit. There are countries all over the world who have high-speed rail, and we still don't really have high-speed rail in this country, and that's a national disgrace. But just to give you an example, the Brookings Institute issued a report about the carbon footprint of the 100 largest metro areas from 2000 to 2005. In the Providence metro area, which includes Fall River and New Bedford, the average of those 100 metro areas of the increase in the carbon footprint from automobile traffic was about 2.5%. It went up 18% in the Providence metro area, where the population only grew, modestly. So it's a real issue, and we need to have the federal government in partnership with us as we address this issue. I put together a group called Transit 2020, all the stakeholders in the metropolitan area of Providence, to really look at how do we develop a more robust system of public transportation. They worked and put together a great report that really set forth a series of steps we should take in the metropolitan area, not just the city of Providence, to build upon the transit system that exists in Rhode Island, the Rhode Island Public Transit Authority. We took that work now and worked with the Rhode Island Public Transit Authority to issue an RFP, which is out right now, to really develop a master plan for a metropolitan transportation system. I hope what will be at the center of that, and what I've been promoting and which is part of the plan, is a streetcar system. Streetcars existed in Providence at the turn of the century. There's been a huge resurgence of an interest in streetcars in American cities. They really transform cities. If you look at Little Rock and Salt Lake, I mean, they've had transformative effects on those cities. The challenge we face, that most cities face, is these systems are expensive to build. And we have not had a federal government that has been a real partner in this in 7 years, and almost 8 now. We have a responsibility both in terms of public health, in terms of our stewardship of the environment, but also investing in greening initiatives and sustainability, I believe, is a really key way to rebuild this country and rebuild our economy and create jobs. When you talk about retrofitting buildings and installing solar panels on buildings, those are jobs which are good-paying jobs, which can't be outsourced, which need to happen in your cities. So there's a huge opportunity here that as we're beginning this work to protect our environment, to reduce our energy consumption, we can also at the same time be growing our economies, creating jobs, and helping to rebuild this country.